I want to mention something quickly that Michael handed me. So far this morning on the internet, we've had 27 visitors. And hopefully that will increase, but we'd definitely like to welcome everyone who is listening on the internet. Thankful that you are taking the time to listen to God's Word being preached. Speaking of a preacher, Brother Paul Vaughn is married to his beloved wife, Ricky. He presently works and preaches for the Hallsville Church of Christ, Hallsville, Kentucky, which was established in 2000. He attended Maysville Community College, Lexington Technical Institute, graduated from the East Tennessee School of Preaching and Missions. Past local work is in Kentucky and Ohio, 18 years working in mission fields in Kentucky and Ohio. He helped to establish a congregation in Brown County, Ohio, Jackson, Kentucky, edited a book on the history of the church in eastern Kentucky, and has written lesson commentaries on the books of Hebrews and Daniel, writes a monthly article for Contending for the Faith on Restoration History, speaks on the television broadcast What Does the Bible Say?, sponsored by the Southwest Church of Christ in Jackson, Mississippi. Once again, he's going to be speaking to us this morning on stealing. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to be here to renew old acquaintances with the members at Bellview. Old friendships. And we hope that if you're ever our way that you'll come and visit us. But as our family says, at least what family we have left, there's no direct route to where we live. So you'll have to drive and experiment around a little bit. I want to introduce this lesson by talking about one of the more wicked people in the Old Testament. This man was a vile person. His father was a very godly man, though at times he sinned greatly. He was a very vain and proud person. Had a great fondness for his hair. If you don't know who that is, you'll find out here in a second. Not only did he have a great fondness for his hair, he killed his brother. Now, after he killed his brother and tried to succeed in taking the kingdom, he took his father's concubine and in the middle of the town committed fornication with them so that everyone could see his disdain. For you see, Absalom was a thief. And we're talking about stealing, so I thought it would be quite appropriate to introduce stealing with Absalom. Because when we think about stealing, we think of maybe pickpockets, maybe someone that will steal your car. We lived in West Memphis, and this was a few years ago, and a few years ago they averaged 5 carjackings a week. And that's dangerous. But there's a type of thief that what Absalom was. This type of thief he steals things, maybe not in a materialistic way. For the Bible says in 2 Samuel chapter 15 and in verse 6, in this manner Absalom acted toward all Israel to come to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of Israel. Of course, you know the context of what I just read. He was set at the gate, and as the Israelites would come for judgment, he would come up to them and buddy with them and say, well, you know, if I was a judge, I would come in your favor. Sounds like politicians today, doesn't it? There are still politicians trying to steal hearts of folks. And not only did he steal the hearts of the people, he tried to subvert God's plan. God anointed, or God had David anointed. And you can see the difference between the heart of a thief and the heart of David Because even when David was anointed king, he did not try to subvert Saul. He says God put him there, God could take him down. And you see a different attitude altogether. But the attitude of a thief is completely different than what we're going to think about. Now, with that in mind, I also like to say there is one thing in our society where stealing is encouraged, and I encourage it myself. And Michael knows what I'm going to talk about, and some of the elders, because I was teasing with him this morning over coffee, he said, what in the world is he talking about? Here he is, supposed to be preaching against stealing. He's going to encourage stealing. Well, baseball. I like to see a good base runner steal a base. And if he could ever steal home, I really encourage that. But you have to be really, really fast in baseball to steal a base. And I know some people say, well, you don't have my team up there. Well, I don't even have my team up there. I just Googled base stealing, and that was the best picture I could download to put on it. But nevertheless, if it's not baseball, stealing is condemned in the eyes of God. Stealing is condemned. When we think about the fundamental standard for truth, and if you realize the lesson yesterday on lying and today on stealing, that basically the liar is a thief, and the thief is a liar. So the fundamental standard for truth is God. In Psalm 31, in verse 15, the Bible says, in fact it's verse 5, into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord God of truth. So God is the standard. He's the God of truth. Sanctify them by thy truth. Thy word is truth. John 17:17. John 14:6, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So the standard for truth is God, and that standard is put into Scriptures for us to follow. That all Scriptures are given by the inspiration of God, a profitable doctrine for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. That we have the Scriptures. There you go. People be complaining about my head now. Thank you, Michael. We have the standard for truth that teaches us that lying is sin, that teaches us that stealing is sin. The New Testament is the Constitution for all to follow today. We talk about the Constitution in the land and how some tried to make the Constitution fluid. There are a lot trying to make the spiritual Constitution fluid too, as far as the New Testament. That it doesn't mean what it says, and it doesn't say what it means. Well, the New Testament says what it means, and it means what it says, period. And if you don't like that, then the one you're going up against is God. Just as Absalom was going up against God and trying to take the kingdom away from David. He thought he was going against David, but he's not going against his father, he's going against God. We think about this standard, we begin to develop moral principles as a child. Now, some of you have talked about in your lessons and have some very good lessons, and this book is excellent. Excellent book. I'm going to go home and preach all these lessons. And in fact, I'm going to preach this one. I haven't preached it at home yet. It's going to get there. When I first started preaching, and I'd go out and do personal work, and I'd knock doors, that if we would, Rick and I set up a Bible study, that usually we could set up the Bible study with the wife, the mother, the woman. And the husband, he wouldn't, necessarily fight against it. He would not, try to stop the Bible study. He'd just be indifferent to it. But lately, I've noticed that I can set the Bible study up with the husband, and the wife, not only if she doesn't want to study, she would fight against the study. And for other reasons, I think we are seeing right now the death throes of our nation. I hope not. Because the morality standard in this great country is tumbled to the point that children are not taught not to steal or not to lie. And not only if they do steal, that the parents usually blame it on someone else, or who are you to charge my little darling with something wrong. And when you see things like that, and it's embedded in our young people as a nation, we cannot overcome it. We cannot overcome the foundations that's being laid today. It is an educational process that begins in the home and transcends into society. And if the child is not brought up to respect other people's property, if the child is not brought up to not steal, to not lie, to not be an immoral person, then the society will change. And not only will they not respect their parents, they'll not respect the teachers, they'll not respect the government, and they'll not respect God. For the foundation is in the home. And if there's no respect in the home, if there's nothing being taught in the home, then the society itself, we are dying. We are dying. Well, we think about stealing. And we think about the thief. We think about thieves, the thief takes what he wants and is never concerned about others. Now, I was in retail for about 10 years before I started preaching. In fact, it was because of retail that was transferred to Owensboro, and they signed up my wife on a correspondence course. So I'm thankful for that. But I was transferred to a store in eastern Kentucky, and the company head of operations told me, he says, when you go in there, he says, you're going to have to fire 80% of the people. And I said, oh. He says, well, they're thieves. That company at that time, they polygraphed everybody from the home office personnel to the manager to the clerk in the warehouse. And now polygraph will tell you that 20% of the chance, you got a chance of being a false positive or a false negative in polygraph tests. But if you have 80% of the people stealing, even if it's a true 20%, you're still looking at a lot of thieves within the store. And I said, well, I'll fire him. He said, if you want to, just go on in and just clear the slate. And no, I don't want to do that. If I do that, they'll be doing to me what they did to other managers, where they shot at them and burnt their clothes and flattened their tires and things like that. And I said, I'll fire them, but when they get fired, they're going to know why they're being fired. It's not going to be any speculation about it at all. The preacher from Prestonsburg, he says, Vaughn, when you go someplace, people get fired. Well, I'll be honest with you, if anyone got fired, it was because they wasn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. I did everything I could to try to keep people employed. But you can't keep an employee that steals from you. In fact, that store had 8% shrinkage. Now, 3% will put you out of business. Companies like to have their shrinkage below 1% or 1.5%. And if you've got 8% shrinkage, then you're losing not only every profit you're making out of that store, but you're losing a lot else. But anyway, I asked some of these people, why do you steal? Oh, it's not stealing. We just see something and we want it. So we take it. Now there's some educational processes that have broke down somewhere, isn't there? That these people think that they can just take anything they want and not have to give an answer for it. Or they can give a discount to anybody they want to with not having to answer for it. Got a cashier selling a $250 chainsaw for $5. Now this was before they had the barcodes. The barcodes keeps a lot of that down. But the cashier would bring up the price, and if her friend came through, she wanted to give him a discount, she'd just type up a different price. And that's a pretty good chainsaw for $5, I thought. But it cost her a lot more. It cost her a lot more. We think about the thief, his priorities, his values, his judgment depends on his desire to acquire and possess more material wealth. The lesson we had yesterday on materialism leads right into stealing. That people want so much, and a lot of people today, they don't want to work to attain their wealth, so they just steal it. They just take it. Why do you think most of these stores have the system set up that a bell goes off when you go through if something has been stolen or taken from the store? The bad part, about 80% of the time that bell goes off, is because the cashier didn't erase the sensor that's in the product. And they did that to me one time. I bought a billfold, and where you realize not to buy a billfold, there's a little sensor in the billfold, and if they don't erase it, every time you go through one, going in or out, it'll go off. Well, I bought this billfold, and I was going in the store. In fact, an employee from the store was going with me, and the thing set off. And I said, well, I don't know why that thing set off. He says, I don't know either. Well, I was glad that employee was with me, because he just, I was talking with him as I got out of the parking lot and just walking in the store with that going on. And then I thought for a second, well, I bought this billfold. And when I went home, I didn't do it in the store, but when I went home, I went through and tore that billfold apart, and there it was. There's a little sensor that she forgot to erase. And so I just got rid of it and didn't have the problem anymore. But the thief's whole desire is simply to get things. His insatiable desire for wealth leads to sin. The thief is never concerned about making right choices. He dwells only on what he can steal. In different ways that he can take something that is not his, something that he's not supposed to have, something that he's not willing to work for, something that he's not willing to pay for. He wants the 5-finger discount. Now, when we think about stealing, have you ever thought about stealing of time? Now, when I was in business, I was well aware of the stealing of time, because we don't think about time as a commodity. We don't think about time as something that we can steal, but people steal time all the time. Stealing of time is quite common. It is done every day without wounding or bruising the conscience. You can have people that would not go in and steal merchandise. You can have people that would say, well, if anyone goes in and they steal merchandise, they're a thief and they need to be punished for it. And at the same time, steal more than the equivalent of a product that the average person steals in time. In time itself. It is common as two co-workers taking too much time at the water cooler. You go to the water cooler and to get a drink of water, and your buddy's there, and you end up talking for 35 or 40 minutes. Well, you've been paid that whole amount of time, haven't you? I know companies, usually by law, they were required to give you break time, and that's anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And it's usually you get a break in the morning, a break in the afternoon, but the time you consider these water cooler breaks in between, that can amount up to quite a deal of money. It can be seen in the employee who uses company time to browse the internet. And we talked about that yesterday a little bit in stealing. In other words, if you have a job and your job has to do with computers and you're not doing company business, if you are, say, searching your email out, or if you're maybe looking on eBay, or perhaps in a chat room, and you could be doing this for an hour. Well, how much have you stolen? Well, how much are you making per hour? How much money are you making per hour? Because that's what you stole from your company. That's what people do. They steal time. Well, time is a valuable commodity. It must be used wisely. Company pays a great amount of money to purchase one's time. Maybe people don't realize it that way. But when you go out and you get a job and seek employment, you're marketing talent, your talent to accomplish this task, whether it be something with a computer or in management or in a factory, in an assembly line. You're saying, I'm talented, I can do this job, and I'm going to sell my talent and my time to you each day for a certain amount of money. In some places that could be as much as $40, $50 an hour. In other places it could be a lot more, and then certainly in some places it could be just minimum wage. But you know, a thief is a thief. It doesn't make any difference. Too often, as soon as they are employed, they steal time. We have a young lady at Hallsville that just got a job at the paper mill. And in the paper mill, they have a introductory period where they bring people in. They teach them safety rules because it's a very dangerous place to work. And they teach them their job, what they need to do to earn the amount of money that they get paid, and they do get paid fairly good salary. Believe it or not, in Hancock County, Kentucky is one of the more industrial counties in the state per capita. We've got wood, we've got aluminum, we've got steel, we've got power, and the population is not that great for the amount of industries there, so they get employees from neighboring counties and neighboring states. And during this introductory period, the employees came up and they said to her, now do not, and they repeated, do not make us look bad by working hard. If you got a job and it's across the plant, don't run or don't walk fast. You'll make us look bad. And what are they telling her? Steal time from the company. Don't work hard. Steal time from the company. It is done every day without any remorse. And sadly, it's done by Christians. When I was in retail, if I could hire a Christian, I would do it. But a lot of times, the biggest problems I had were from members of the church. I hired a young girl in eastern Kentucky, and I'm going to tell you which store or what town. And she was one of the deacon's daughters. I hired her because she was the deacon's daughter, to be honest with you. He asked me if I'd give her a chance. I said, well, sure, I'd give her a chance. She was a high school kid, just turned old enough to employ. And she was the worst cashier I ever had. I mean, she was bad. Even when the bad cashiers come to you and complain about her, you know you got a bad employee. And I said, well, I'm going to have to fire her to myself now, not to them. And I said, this is not going to come across good at church. It's just not going to happen. And the day I was going to fire her, she quit. And I thank God. and I thought to myself, I'm going to be very selective about this from now on. Because sometimes you can bruise a brother or sister in a way that you can be right, and still they're going to hold it against you. But if you're working for someone, you have a certain obligation. Christian ethics demands an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. As an individual, I was brought up to work. I would mow grass to make maybe $2 or $3. I mean, back then you mow a grass, you had one of those push boards that had the blades that go around. That's hard labor, and you mow a yard for $1.50. And I was taught if you want something, you worked, you earned it. And if someone hired you, you give them your best job. You know, the same thing as far as being a preacher. You're employed by the congregation, you give them your best job. I might not do as good a job as Brother Summers or as Brother Brown or Brother Hatcher, but you know, that's not my problem. And it's not the church's problem. I just do the best job that Paul Vaughn could do. And that's all that matters, isn't it? And as long as you make this agreement, you don't have to back up to the pay window. When I managed the store, I had some employees that not only had to back up to the pay window, but they needed to cover their face in shame. That's how bad it was. This is why I thought I'd concentrate a little bit on the subject. For even when we were with you, we commanded you this: if anyone will not work, neither shall he eat. You know, if you think about work and the ethic of work, back in Genesis, in the very beginning, God the Father gave His children, Adam and Eve, a job to do. They were to tend the garden. Now, whatever that consisted of, I do not know. I don't imagine seeing Adam out there with a hoe or a weed eater. And now up home, brethren, I always say a weed eater is a woman's appliance. And the guys like it, but the women don't. But whatever God told Adam to do as far as tending the garden, he had a job to do. He had a job to do. He who is slothful in his work is a brother to him who is a great destroyer. And we need to have this work ethic about us. And parents, bring your children up to work. Bring your children up to not be lazy. Get them away from electronics and get them out doing something. Laziness is a dangerous attitude that leads to spiritual death. Don't you know if someone is too lazy to work, they're too lazy to study the Bible, they're too lazy to put an effort forth to be pleasing to God. A worker cannot be lazy and please God. There's just no way that's going to happen. Because if you're not working for what you're getting paid for, then you're stealing money from your company or the person who has employed you. And that's fact. If I'm wrong, someone straighten me out. I appreciate that. But that's exactly the way it is. Work is not a dirty word. I wrote an article once on 4-letter words. And I said 4-letter words, some of them are dirty words. But there's a 4-letter word that is not a dirty word, and it's work. W-O-R-K. It's not a dirty word. In fact, when we think about it, that's a blessing. You know, how boring it is to go through the day and not do anything. Ricky and I, we never fail to see when we come to Pensacola, the people at Panhandle. It's about like West Memphis. And if those people got a job, and you say they can't get a job, yes they can. If they're looking for a job, they can get a job. That's fact. Might not be the job they want. They might not be making the wage they want. When I started out in retail, I didn't start out as manager. I started out unloading trucks in the warehouse. Was I making a whole lot of money? No. But we got by. And then we advanced. But it seems so today people want to start out at the very top position making all the money. If they're not going to do that, then they're not going to work hard for the money they do get. But work is not a dirty word. It can bring rewards for those who are diligent and not lazy. In fact, if anybody today in our society, if you have some diligence about you and you are a good worker and honest, in fact, anything you want to do in advancement, you'll get. Because that type of employee is hard to find today. Someone who is dependable, someone who will not steal time. Well, there are identity thieves. We talk about different types of thieves today. And I'll be honest with you, I hate that identity thief idea. And Rick and I were thinking, well, that's never going to happen to us. I mean, we live in Podunk, Kentucky. There's no direct route to Kentucky from part of Kentucky where we live. You have to be definitely on a road wanting to go there and have to change the road 4 or 5 times before you get there. And we were in Elizabethtown to Sam's, I believe is where it was. We'd got some things to buy at Sam's. She got out her card to use it to pay for the material, and the thing wouldn't take her card. Well, I've been to places, service stations, where it does not take a debit card. You have to go on the inside and they do it, and she tried, and finally I used my debit card and it took that. So I thought, well, maybe, there's just something wrong that reader didn't want to read her card. So we went down to the grocery to get some things we couldn't get at Sam's, and she took out her card, wouldn't take her card. And so I took my card. And I said, we'll go to the bank and find out what the deal is. Well, someone had stolen her identity. And from Florida. And this is why I said on Telling the Truth that the bank said, if you're going to Florida, let us know, because if your cards come through with Florida, unless we know it, we're not going to accept it. And someone lost their soul over a McDonald's hamburger and fries and a tank of gas. That's all they got off of her card. It's enough for the bank to stop it. They knew something was wrong when we was in Kentucky using the card, and all at once these purchases showed up in South Florida. And someone lost their soul over, that doesn't seem like a fair trade to me. To lose your soul over a McDonald's hamburger and a tank of gas. I'm just glad that the tank wasn't empty. It's the price of gas. But It took us 2 weeks to get the money back. It took us another 3 weeks to get the card back, because when they sent the card back, they sent it to the wrong address, so they had to send us a new card. So identity theft is popular today. That you run a good chance of someone stealing your identity. In no matter any situation you're in, if you go to any place, there's a restaurant in Tell City, that if you go there, you better pay cash. Because the bank, which we deal at, said if you go there, you pay cash, or somebody's going to get your card number, and they're going to use it. Well, in the electronic age, stealing has gone high tech. Thieves are no longer satisfied with stealing personal property. They desire to steal your identity. They're even stealing identities of little babies. When I was born, you didn't get a Social Security card till you get ready to go to work. But now I think they assign a Social Security number at birth. And they're stealing these Social Security numbers of these little babies, and then all at once the parents get a bill from a credit card company for maybe $10,000, and the kid's only 9 months old. Now, I don't know about you all, but I don't believe that kid charged that. I really don't. And the parents took it to the bank, and they said, oh, well, we don't either. But that's how bad the identity thieving is. It is estimated that 15 million Americans have their identity stolen each year, causing financial losses between $40 and $50 billion. $40 and $50 billion. And then, see, the bad part, Ricky's card, she didn't use it that much. But they hacked into the bank a year and a half ago, and it's just now showing up. So if you've got information on a computer, you can have your computer safe at home, but if your information is out there somewhere to an insurance company, to a bank, to a financial institution, it is there, and most likely sometime within the next few years they're going to be hit. So just be prepared. Everyone is vulnerable to attacks from identity thief, and no one is safe. If you think you're safe, look out, because that's when they're going to get you, because we thought we were safe. And they got her number and a card that she'd only maybe use once or twice every month or two. And they picked that up. Well, stealing of a reputation. You have time thieves, you have identity thieves, and then there's the stealing of reputation. Perhaps the greatest thief is one who goes about to steal another's good name. And that's way too prevalent. Any sin is too prevalent, but the stealing of the reputation. These 6 things the Lord hates, yea, a seventh is an abomination to him, a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. For you see, those who steal the reputation are liars, but not only the liars, they're thieves. They're stealing that from a person, which is very important. Why do people ruin reputations? It happens all the time. It's because of jealousy. Jealousy is an evil that will destroy someone else's reputation. Because of envy. I think Brother Rutherford's going to talk about gossip here next, aren't you, brother? And people that gossip, they can pass on information. I know he's going to get in this a lot more than what I'm going to do. And they can pass on information that is not true. You know, I was with some preachers, and this preacher said, well, you know, so-and-so's wife was messing around talking about a movie star or a country singer. And I thought to myself, now you just said that, and you have absolutely no way to prove that is true. You know, you just pass it on. So we have to be very careful about stealing a reputation. We must practice the golden rule. We like people to treat us like that, don't you? It says, therefore, whatever you want men to do you also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. And we need to practice that. Well, there are people that steal from God. Stealing from God, giving is very basic to Christianity, because God is the greatest giver. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. And what a tremendous gift, and we're all recipients of that. I'm assuming everybody here in this assembly this morning are members of the church, that we all are recipients of that wonderful and marvelous gifts, and God commands all humanity to give their best to Him. You are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And basically, what the Lord is saying there, you love Him with everything. But don't we steal from God when we don't give Him our total heart? Don't we steal from God when we don't serve Him zealously? See, we can steal time from God too, can't we? Can't we steal time from God? Yes. It happens every day by Christians. Any time you take your time that God has given you, you take the air that He has provided, you take the earth that He has provided, and you say, well, He's just not that important to me today. I'm not going to Bible study. Or He's just not that important to me today. I'm not going to discuss Christianity with my neighbor. Someone's taking something and using something that's been provided for them in a way that God is not pleasing to God. Well, Christians steal from God by not giving as they prosper. You know, as concerning collection for the saints upon the first day of the week. Lay by in store. I know when we're out, we might put something in the collection plate just as a token of support, but we leave our contribution at home. And I'm very aware of that, because being a small contribution, a small church, that if we left our contribution at home, we might not be able to pay all the bills this month. You see. So a lot of times people will finance a vacation on the Lord's contribution. Or when they're on vacation, well, we'll not go to services, or we'll go to services where we're not members, and we don't have to give. You know, the Bible says, give and you prosper. Did you prosper that week? Did you prosper that month? Now, there are times when you won't prosper. And you might not be able to give anything, and nothing, you know, there's no sin in that. But people steal from God. Christians steal from God by not giving their best in service. Be thou faithful unto God unto death. In everything we have, we need to be doing our best. Why do Christians steal from God? Well, it's just a loveless heart. They don't love God the way they should. They don't give Him the top spot in their hearts. They don't give Him the very best places in their hearts. The thief believes the advantages of stealing are exceptionally good. In other words, those who steal time, they believe they can get by with it, and it won't cost them their job. Eventually, it will catch up with them. You spend too much time at the water cooler, eventually somebody's going to see you there that knows you're not supposed to be spending 30 minutes getting a drink of water. And it's going to cost you your job. The thief, the identity thief, he thinks that his rewards are going to be great, that he will not get caught. Eventually they will get caught. I know they caught some terrorists in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Maybe y'all saw that on the news lately. And one of those terrorists, they got his fingerprint off of a bomb in Afghanistan. Now, what was your chances, you think, of being in Afghanistan, placing a bomb, and you being in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and they catch you? Now, if they can do that, when it comes to things like stealing, you're going to pay for it. But you know, it doesn't matter. Whether they get caught by people in charge or not, they're going to be caught by God. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he reap. He that soweth to the spirit to the flesh will reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit will reap everlasting life. The thief works hard to gain that which is not his, and loses his most valuable possession in the process, the soul.